Stand firmly in the sunlight of your attention, always. Remain firm-footed in the presence of your acceptance. Understand that everything in your life echoes out from how you relate with yourself, to what you allow to be experienced in yourself. Understand that your life is a canvas of what you accept and resist in yourself. Begin to see your life as an expression of what you create and tolerate in yourself. And begin to work with the wisdom that the more we accept sensations, experiences, emotions, feelings, subtleties within ourselves, the more we accept these, the more we begin to see magic in our life and beauty. But the more we resist, the more we label parts of ourselves, the more we judge parts of ourselves, the greater friction we experience in our lives, and the more complications we experience in our lives outside. So if you are in your external life experiencing difficulties, frictions, tensions, and things are complicated, then it is often, it is a signal that there are parts of you within what you experience that you, whether consciously or unconsciously, label, you judge, or you resist. And it is important to understand that if things outside of life are complicated, the waters are muddied, and instead of going inward to investigate and to stand in the sunlight of our attention, to be present in the wholeness of ourselves, regardless of comfortable or uncomfortable sensations, if we do not do that, and instead we outsource that responsibility to fixing external complexities, we will only add more complexities, creating a karmic echo. What started out muddying the water, if the water is muddy and we try to solve that by adding more mud, we only exacerbate the problem. If we create a problem with a certain action only to continue that action, we are going wrong. We are called to a different approach, or we are called to the source of our problem, which began inside of us, that began internally when we decided that a part of us we experienced in that moment was not valid, was not acceptable. And in that moment, whether conscious or unconsciously, we judged a part of us. And like a child that is unhappy, it cannot speak. All it can do to communicate is to cry or to smile. It has not learned language. And that is how our unconscious body works. That is how our body works. It doesn't communicate. The mind communicates in language and words, but the body and our unconscious communicates in experience, sensations, feelings, emotions. And it is a language in and of itself. And if that part of us is crying or feels negative emotions, painful experiences, and instead of standing firmly in the sunlight of our attention, we cover our sun, we cast a shadow over ourselves because we deem that part of us not worthy to be seen by ourselves, first and foremost. And then that projects into the world. But initially we decided that part of us shouldn't even be seen by ourselves. And so the baby cries and the mother and father don't listen to it anymore. They put a finger in their ears and they pretend the baby isn't crying. That is what we all do in our lives, to greater or lesser extent, depending on our relationships we have with ourselves, depending on how much sunlight we are prepared to stand in our own attention, within ourselves. And often we block the sunlight of our own attention because we have learned otherwise. We have learned to cover ourselves, whether that's from external judgments or tripping up along the way, hurting ourselves, whatever it may be. We have learned in large parts to cover up ourselves, to put fingers in our ears when the child inside cries. We condemn the child, we condemn the crying, we lament the pain, we try to hide the suffering, and we try to solve the problem externally, which is another language of the mind. We take action and we solve things externally, we try to control things externally. And that can work short term. It can work wonders short term. And we can often be led astray because the road to hell is through comfort, where we believe everything's fine because we're in control. And we're in control because we're telling ourselves we're in control. We're using the language of the mind, we're using words. But the real language of liberation and control is in the body, is in accepting the fullness of the sunlight of our attention, and to be firmly in that light. And that light is blinding sometimes, and we've not learned to train our eyes to see ourselves fully, because each and every one of us in our fullness is incredibly bright. And it takes time to train the eyes. It's not something you do in a couple months. It's just something that you would train year on year for the rest of your life, because the true breadth and extent and brightness of your light is so powerful that it will take a lifetime. In every case, there are a few rare exceptions which we've seen in history and the world, but for the most part we are all trying to stand present in the light of our attention. And as we train our eyes more and more to see and to stand in the light of our attention, we begin to unmuddy the waters of our external life. Because if your life externally is confusing and it's complex, that's not how life should be. Aligned with your light within, life is playful, it is light, it is creative, it is effortless, it is graceful, because that is our divine natural state. If things are complex, they're tense, they're confusing, they're muddied, they're blurred, well then you have blocked the light within at some point, in one way or in more ways. And it will be up to you to turn inward, to cultivate and to train your eyes, cultivate that light and to train your eyes to see it, to be present in its attention. And by doing that, the waters will become clearer outside, externally. And that's when, because you are more clear in yourself, and you begin to realize that once you're clear in yourself, you're clear in your life outside, because life outside is a reflection of you. And that's true power, because the life outside is you. And so all you need to do is go inside and find that light, which then, once you do it, projects out effortlessly. And life is no longer complicated because you have to control all these external variables. it is then purely a case of, okay, consistently come back in. Where is the confusion? Where is the source of this confusion or this tension or this complexity? And it is within. It is the crying baby. It is the blocked sunlight. It is the parts of us we judge and lament and resist, or resisted in the past that we still haven't, that we didn't realize we did in the past. And then once we realize, at some point in the past, to survive, to get through, maybe you resisted a certain part of you blocked a certain part of your light to get through that moment in your life. And maybe it takes a few moments, spending some time in yourself, to connect with yourself in silence, to remember that moment, to ultimately release that moment. Because often it is alive in the ignorance of our attention. But once we are aware of it, we can release it. And the more we release these blockages and we release our fingers from our ears, and we hear the crying, and though it may be uncomfortable, it may be painful, it is important. It is how we gain control and how we liberate ourselves from the complexities which we may find in our external life. And once we have removed our hands from the light and removed our fingers from our ears, we can then begin to take action into our life externally and recreate from that clarity, and to remember that this inner work is one of a consistent nature, a long-term commitment to yourself, to your light. The divine within you is a long-term commitment. It is not a part-time role. Because why would you want to be part-time to yourself? The question is, are you prepared to fully commit to yourself, to no matter how uncomfortable it may be, to stand in the light of your attention, regardless of whether the seas are rough or smooth, and not just in this moment, but for the rest of your life? Because I guarantee if you do, you will see beauty and magic. You will begin to dream again as a child. You begin to remember the magic of childhood, realize in adulthood through the acceptance of all within, as you embody yourself fully. So I invite you to dive into yourself, to explore yourself, to relearn or remember yourself, and to stand in the light of your attention. Good luck and goodbye. See ya.